Hi, Catherine, officially first person on camera. How are you? Love it. We got Robin in, Carmen's in. So good to see everybody. Hi.
I love it. Hey, everybody. So glad you're all here.
And y'all, we're going to give you permission tonight to be able to unmute yourselves. So whenever you want, or you got questions, you want to talk to me, you want to talk to Liz throughout the night, you just want to say hi now while we're waiting and talk about how your day was or anything. Feel free, unmute anytime so we can all chit chat as we're going, okay? Is everyone cooking along with us? Going to be cooking with us tonight? Robin, Carmen, Catherine, are you all actually baking? Yeah? Okay, awesome. I love how you can tell how much people have been in Zoom for the last couple of years because everyone automatically knows that it's like muted, thumbs up is like, I'm good. Like that's just part of culture now.
It's more universal than ever.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
And Liz, how are you looking? You were chatting a little bit. You've got everything ready to go, ingredients, everything good?
I think so.
Okay.
Yep,
All
I
right,
think
cool.
I've got everything. I don't have terminato or whatever that other kind of sugar is that was on there, but I'm looking forward to shortbread even without that.
You don't have to have them. Turbinado and Demerara sugar are just, it's like, think of it like finishing sugars, almost like sugar in the raw. If you got any sugar in the raw packets around for like your coffee or tea, grab that, open that up. But it's just, kind of fancy, crunchy finishing sugar. You don't have to have it.
I'll have to look in the junk drawer. We might have one of those.
You grab yourself a packet or two of sugar in the raw and you are good to go.
I'm going to check it out.
Catherine, who's that helping you? Who's your sous chef? Hi.
Say hi, that's Amelia.
Hi, Amelia. I get it. I'm scary, for sure. 100%. Oh, y'all, I'm super excited to be doing this. I'm so excited. This is my first chance getting to work with the USO and cook with all of you. Usually one of my cohorts, Joel, I don't know if you've ever cooked with Chef Joel before, but he does a lot of USO events, and I've always been kind of sitting on the side being a little jealous or a lot jealous. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to do this. Gonna have some fun.
Excited to have you here. This is fun. And we love this group. This is always military spouses from all over the world. Like we will inevitably have a global audience. And I'm so excited that people love to cook along with us from their kitchens everywhere. It's the best part.
That is awesome. That's here at home. It's kind of the same thing every day. We'll do a class, put in the chat where you came in from. And we've got like Sydney, Canada, Japan, to be able to cook with people all over the world is pretty neat. Where's everybody else coming in from? You can unmute, or if you want to, you can put it in the chat. But where are you at?
I'll say hi from Dayton, Ohio. There's an Air Force Base here, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And we have a group of us who are all in the same spouses club. And right now we're in, because of COVID, we're not meeting in person for stuff. And this cooking class was such a great way for us to hang out and do the same thing all together. So thank you.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love to hear that.
Oh, here comes some more people joining. Yeah, it sounds a little selfish, but I mean, that's literally the best part of my job is the fact that I just get to hang out with everybody else. You think it's like the food and all that, but just being able to talk and connect with people and do the same thing at the same time it's a blast. Hi, Alexandra. How are you? Let's see.
I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. We'll give it maybe 1 or 2 minutes if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
And then let as many people come in before we kick it off.
I will hang out with you all night. I don't know if Heather will stay behind in the chat all night, but I will. She says yes. She nodded her head. I saw it. So
I think as long as there's food, we could pull it all nighter.
Yeah, for sure. We got tons of stuff around here. I'll order pizza, whatever we got to do. It's good.
I don't know if Catherine and Amelia will want to hang out all night, but as long as we can.
Let's see. So, one class officially, Cheyenne, Wyoming. I love it. And the emoji with the cowboy hat. That's awesome, Nicole. A couple things I just like to talk about before we really get started. And if we get some more people in, I'll mention it to them as well. But did everyone get all the ingredients okay? Are there any substitutions, any changes, anything that you want to kind of talk about? Make sure maybe I can help you out with, set you up for success, or did you get everything all right? I'm not seeing any panicked faces. I'm seeing smiles and silent head nods and thumbs up. So I think we're good. Okay. All right. Cool. Awesome. Oh, and Heather just put the recipe in the chat, which is great.
If anybody else was wondering about the coconut sugar, I asked Chef Ben about that earlier, and he said it's fine to just set off with white granulated sugar. So here in my little tiny town in Louisiana, I couldn't find coconut sugar, so good plain stuff here.
Yeah, coconut sugar is neat. It's one of these. It's a good sub for both white and brown sugars. I mean, I won't go down a rabbit hole about white and brown sugars doing different things, but from a flavor profile and stuff, it really is. But we've kind of gotten into it lately because it's a little bit more of a natural sugar and doesn't give you as much of like a glycemic spike and all this health stuff. But if you can't find it, regular white sugar or brown sugar is great.
That's the stuff that fascinates me. Why stuff does what it does to our bodies and all that.
Yeah.
Another episode, perhaps.
Another episode, perhaps. Yeah. I go on a whole, like, just a diatribe about like white sugar, brown sugar, all the different things in baking. But maybe that's this is a less dorky class than that. So today will be more like fun instead of nerding out on ingredients.
We like fun, but if you need to get dorky on us, I'm sure I'm really bad.
Well, you're guaranteed.
We've got about 5 or 6 more people coming in from the waiting room, and then we'll kick it off because we have an hour. And
Yeah.
we'll make sure that we get this whole recipe in.
Oh, we're getting this whole thing
for
in.
those who are just joining us, feel free to put your location in the chat box. Let us know where you're joining us from because we're here to make connections.
Here come the waiting room, folks.
Love it. Mike is in Japan. That's so cool. Good morning.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Oh, the Bengals fans. Who's excited for the Super Bowl this weekend? Be more excited if the Packers have made it, but still excited.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with that situation.
Who's your team?
It's weird growing up in New England, but ever since I was a kid, I was a huge 49ers fan. So, and I really wanted them to beat the Rams, and I wanted a Bengals 49ers, like, bring back my childhood Super Bowl, and the whole thing got ruined.
It's okay. The 49ers ruined my Super Bowl this year, and I think last year, the year before.
Sorry.
That's fine. All right, let's kick it off, you guys. Let's do this. I don't want to cut any more time. Welcome everybody to In the Kitchen. We're so excited you're here. For those who are joining us for the first time, the whole reason we're here is to connect over something that we all know and love, which is food. So if you're joining us for the first time, you're welcome to be on camera. You're welcome to cook along with us. But if you'd rather just watch, listen, that's fine too. If you have anything to contribute to the conversation, go ahead and put it in the chat box. If you have questions about the recipe, if you have questions about the ingredients, you can throw those in there, or you can put them in the Q&A box. We do have staff behind the scenes who can answer your recipe questions and help with any technical issues you might have. We're just so excited that you all are here. With Valentine's Day coming up, we thought we would make something that can be a fun date night, whether it's with your sweetie, your besties, or just a group of friends that you're trying to get to know better. So we're really excited to have with us tonight a new chef in the kitchen. This is Chef Ben Leonard. We're so happy to have you here. Chef Ben is from Maine, and after that, he moved to Los Angeles, where he became the resident chef at Sur la Table. He now lives in Seattle, and we're so happy to have him join us tonight as the lead chef from Homemade. Ben, I will send it over to you.
Hey, all. Well, thanks, Liz. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me here and for the nice introduction. I just want to say, first and foremost, just thank you all for coming and cooking with me. We were talking about it a little bit before class even got started. This is a huge honor for me. I don't know if any of you have ever worked with one of my partners, my teammates here, Chef Joel Gamron, but he works with the USO a lot. And I've always been like, I would just love to do that because I'm so thankful for everything that all of your families do, to allow me to do what I do every day, which is usually cook and play with my dog and scroll through Instagram and do yard work for the most part. But I couldn't do those things without all of you and your entire families, kids, spouses, everything. So thank you for having me here. Really, really honored. I just want to also call out, it's not just me here alone. Liz was talking about it, but Chef Heather, amazing chef and technical director for Zoom, expert. She is here to answer all of your questions. So you have the ability tonight to unmute yourselves at any point. If you want to just banter, talk with me and Liz, you have questions for me, you're like, just want to talk about your day, whatever you want, unmute anytime. But if you don't want to do that or you're busy doing something, you can throw questions into the chat. Heather's here to answer absolutely everything for you as well, okay? And also, I kind of want to say before we get cooking, but just like Liz was saying, this is all about making connections. That's what we do here at Homemade. We do like 6, 7, 8 classes every week. People from all over the world jump on Zoom and cook along with us. It's not very often that I get to do an event that's kind of a size like this. We're getting like hundreds of people. I don't get to talk with people as much. So please, please, please unmute and hang out and like talk to each other and talk to me as we're going. So I want to go over the ingredients. This is one thing I do before every class that I teach is I want to make sure, you all are all over the world, all over the country. I want to make sure that you have everything that you need. If you don't, I'm here to help you make the best possible substitution with whatever you've got in your pantry. So I want to go over all the ingredients. I know it's not an ingredient, but first things first, I'd hate for you to make these cookies and then not be able to bake them. So if you're baking the cookies tonight, if you would, turn your oven on to 300 degrees. That's what we're going to bake our shortbread cookies. And just have your oven on and ready to go. So we're going to be making this amazing chocolate mousse with little shortbread cookies with some little crunchy sugar on the top, all right? And the first thing we're going to start with is going to be the cookies, but we're going to go over both ingredients at once just to make sure that you are all okay, all right? So let me switch here. We got multiple views for you tonight so you can see what's going on nice and close. So I want to talk about the cookies first. We've got our oven on. We're going to need a little sheet tray here with like parchment, silicone mat, something like that you're going to be able to bake them on. And then for the cookies themselves, we have 6 tablespoons of butter. We melted it and let it cool back down a little bit. So if you haven't melted yours now, go ahead and do that. We also have 4 tablespoons of sweetener, so honey, maple syrup. If you didn't have either of those, you could also use just regular white sugar. That would be totally fine. We've got a teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're going to be doing a little bit of zest, so like 2 teaspoons or so of orange zest. You're going to need a little pinch of salt. If you want to grab a 1/4 teaspoon and measure it out, you can, but I'm going to advise you not to. We're just going to pinch a little pinch of salt into the cookies. And then we also have our flour. So it's about 1.5 cups or so of just regular white all-purpose flour. And then Liz and I were joking about this earlier. This is turbinado sugar or demerara sugar. It looks like this, but it's a little bit finer. Basically, it's just like sugar in the raw, big, crunchy, pretty looking sugar. If you had sugar in the raw over at your tea station at home, you could open up a couple packs of that and that'd be totally fine. If you don't have it, not a big deal, okay? And then lastly for the cookies, you're gonna need something to kind of roll. This is a really soft dough. So we're gonna need something to roll the dough out in between. I'm using a couple things of parchment. You could use plastic wrap, if plastic wrap's all you have. And then rolling pin if you got one. If you don't, I don't want to say any judgments. I always have a wine bottle around, always. So if you don't own a rolling pin, a wine bottle, just something flat will be totally fine to be able to roll them out, okay? So that's everything we're going to need basically for our cookies. And then what I'm really here for, honestly, is the chocolate mousse. So we're going to talk about that really quick. We've got 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 3 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Really, it can be anything, but the better quality chocolate, the better your chocolate mousse is going to taste. We have our coconut sugar. So this is a 1/4 cup. I know coconut sugar is not something you're always going to find. If you don't have coconut sugar, just regular white granulated sugar is going to work beautiful. It's going to be perfect. Still that same 1/4 cup. 2 eggs. I'm going to be a rebel. I'm going to be risky, and I'm going to separate these eggs on camera in front of all of you. And I definitely don't have a backup egg in case I mess up. Definitely not. And then, so we're going to be separating those out. So we're going to be using our whites and our yolks separately. And then we have a little bit more flavoring again. So we've got 1 tablespoon of agave, but like maple syrup or honey would be great. And then another little teeny tiny splash, 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Now for the mousse, you are going to need a couple different things. We're going to need a double boiler, which is a sauce pot with some water, and then a heat-proof bowl over the top, like a glass or metal bowl. We're going to need a separate bowl to whip up our whipped cream, and then a separate bowl to whip up our egg whites. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can use a hand mixer. You can do this whole thing by hand, but we just need 2 separate bowls to whisk those up, okay? So that's basically everything we need. We're gonna get started on the cookies. But before we do, I always just like to take a pause. This is your chance. You can unmute yourself. You can put it in the chat, and Heather can ask, or you can ask Heather if there's any questions, substitutions, equipment, anything like that before we get ready to cook. Anything in the chat? Apparently, I'm being told I need to shout out Misty's apron because it is fantastic. Where am I? Am I missing this? Misty, what is that apron? It's a lot of fishes. Fishes?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I made this apron.
What?
With a lot of trout and bass. Freshwater. My husband loves to fish, so I thought he would like it when I wore it.
That's a fantastic. I love that apron. That part I'm going to stay out of, but the apron's lovely. The apron's great. All right, so that no questions, no substitutions. You guys got everything? Y'all, we found everything we needed? Robin, you have one? You can go ahead and unmute. I saw the hand go. It's like, I have a question.
Okay, yeah, I was looking for something so I could have an example. I always use my metal. Normally, I like these. These are better quality, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
But do cheaper quality ones, measuring spoons, measuring cups, end up not being as accurate?
Yeah. I don't, Robin, we're supposed to bake and you're gonna get me on a tangent here. Different size pans, different companies measuring stuff, all those sort of things. Sometimes they are just completely off. So it is one of those things for measuring things, especially, you really think like, oh, I'm just gonna save the $10 on this set. But it's one of those things like the accuracy is important. So you're better off having a nice one as much as we all wanna. Hi. Yeah, literally, I would just say it's one of those ones where I hate to say it, but like money is typically usually probably quality. So you feel that the measurement's going to be more spot on if it's a nice set. I'm not going to say metal versus plastic, but
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it. These are both half teaspoons.
You want to know what you need to do? Do you have a scale?
I do.
You should take something like flour or sugar and put them in both of them and then weigh them and see if they actually, how far off they are.
Okay. I was just curious. It's just like one day I was making, and I always like this, the metal ones, but I had this newer set that I just have to pick up. This is not the same.
I'd go with the metal ones.
That's what I've kind of done. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm done.
You don't ever have to be done. We can talk as much as you want. I can talk, Robin, so we're good. All right, so let's get started on this, y'all. We're gonna start with our cookies, get our shortbread cookies going, all right? So the butter, like I said, we wanna have it melted. We wanna have it slightly cooled though. So if you look at my bowl, you can even see how it's like the butter's starting to set around the edge. We'd rather have it be a little on the cool side than a little on the hot side, just because we need to let this dough actually cool down. It'll be easier to work with. If it's really hot, it's gonna be a really soft dough, and it's a soft enough dough as it is already. So you just don't want your butter too warm. But the flour, we're gonna just hold off on for a second, but everything else that's in the recipe, we're just gonna add into the bowl and start mixing it up. So I'm gonna start with just a couple teaspoons of orange zest. Do y'all have like a little grater? Like, I know not everyone has a microplane, but even like the fine side of a cheese grater or something like that, that's perfect. If you don't have a zester, you could always just grab like a peeler and peel a little strip of orange off, kind of like you were making a cocktail, and then you could just like chop it up very finely if you wanted to. But it's really funny because everyone thinks of me as a baking guy, but I'm like the least measury baking person ever. So there's 0% chance I'm gonna measure out 2 teaspoons of orange zest. I'm just gonna zest about half of this orange and go, that looks delicious and that smells delicious, and I'm happy with that. If you wanted a little bit more orange zest or a little bit less, you could absolutely add that in, but just about 2 tablespoons in. And then there's no order for the rest of it. We're just gonna put in our little pinch of salt. Quarter teaspoon is literally just like 2 small pinches. I'm gonna put in my vanilla and also my honey. And we're just going to start getting that all mixed around. Now, this is fun. I get to be really interactive with y'all, so I usually don't put you on the spot, but does anyone know why we have to mix all of this stuff together before we put the flour in? These are shortbread cookies. And shortbread or short crust just means that it's soft and it's tender and it's crumbly and it falls apart. And once you get flour wet, it's like some of y'all have to be bread bakers. As soon as you get flour hydrated and get it wet, milk, water, whatever, and you start working it and you knead it, it gets stretchy and you build a lot of gluten. If you work these cookies too much, they're going to be tough. They're not going to be soft and crumbly. They're going to be like tough little orange bricks, which nobody wants to serve. So you always want, when you want tender baked goods, you want to mix the wet ingredients kind of separate first and get everything equally distributed. So the orange zest, the honey, everything is like an evenly combined mixture. And that way, when we put the flour in, we're only stirring it to combine the flour and incorporate the flour. It's not to kind of distribute and spread everything out. That means that we can mix it less. They're going to be nice and tender and short. It's a good rule of thumb for most soft baked goods that you want to have. Liz, how are you doing over there? You good?
I'm good. I'm loving the smell of the orange zest. Like, I need this in my kitchen at all times.
I have this life, it's literally a life rule where if I'm ever using juice in a recipe, like citrus juice, I have to use the zest, even if it's not in there. Even if it's just like a little bit, it just, the aroma off of it and the essential oils makes you happy. Yeah, it's great.
I'm adopting that rule from now on.
It's good. I have some other life rules that we're not going to talk about on here, but that is one that is applicable to this current situation. All right, y'all. So I'm going to add in my flour now. I said everything's just kind of equally mixed up, evenly combined. If you're doing the sprinkling sugar for the top, just as a reminder, that's being saved. Optional ingredient. But I'm just going to add in my flour now. Oh.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, of course you can.
So I had emailed you or emailed our USO, Trish, I think, and asked about gluten-free type, just because that's already that way. And so you said we could do half flour, which is obviously not gluten-free, and half almond flour. Is there any way that we could actually specifically use almond, or no? Was that not really going to be the same?
It probably won't bind together quite well enough if you did all almond, Misty. There's just not enough structure to it, but it does inherently take the gluten out. You could switch over. No one loves this example, but like you could do half almond flour and half like one of those cup for cup flour substitutes, because those have enough other things in them, like cornstarch and rice flour, and they put a whole bunch of things into one bag to kind of bind it. So that could be a good way to go. It's random. I don't know if you'd have it around, but another option would be like buckwheat. Buckwheat along with almond flour would kind of bring it.
Okay.
Sorghum. Heather and I, our eyes just both like went, yeah, half sorghum, half almond. Do it.
Perfect.
Yes.
I'm going to try it.
Love it.
One more quick question.
Yeah.
How many grams of flour do you use using a scale?
You are testing me because like I'm totally going to have Heather Google it because it's Monday. I'm trying to remember what 1 cup of flour generally is. I feel like it's about 70 grams is 1 cup. But let's see. The suspense is palpable. I'm in my suspense stance. How much? For the cup and a half? 200 grams for the cup and a half.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Of course. All right, so flour has gone in, mixing just to combine. And I'm going to have my parchment on standby here because once we get this mostly together, we're going to dump it right out onto one of those sheets of parchment, and it's going to help us bring the whole shortbread cookie together. Now, in the recipe, you'll see, and this is what I was talking about earlier. If y'all take a peek, I'll go to this side. And you can see it's a really soft dough, right? I mean, this is very soft, very tender. If you want to make it a little bit easier to roll out, work with, and also when you bake them, they'll keep their shape a little bit better. Once we get this dough together, you can transfer it to the refrigerator and chill it for about like 10 minutes or so. I'm going to probably just end up putting mine right in the oven so you don't see me walk off screen. But if you want to, just know that if you want to chill it for 10 minutes before you bake them, totally an option. It just makes it a little bit easier to keep their shape since the dough is so soft. But take a peek. I'm going to bring my parchment over. Got my other one ready to go. And this is as far as you really need to take the dough, right? There's still a little bit of flour around. It hasn't come all the way together, but we're going to put it together on the parchment, and we'll be able to turn it into one solid dough. So how is everyone doing out there as I'm dumping this out? I want to make sure everyone's kind of trending along. Want to be having lots of fun, and it's not fun to be stressed out or behind. So are we in general doing okay, or do we need a minute? I see lots of arms stirring. So maybe that means we need a minute. We're doing okay. All right, well, I am going to remind you, if anybody, I saw a couple people come in the waiting room, I think, after I mentioned this. If you are going to be baking these cookies now, make sure you have your oven on 300 degrees, and just have it getting nice and preheated, nice and warm for you. So can I ask, is this anybody's first time coming to In the Kitchen? Missy's first time with her fish, Robin, Carmen, Nancy. Oh, welcome, y'all. This is great. We're making new friends, Liz. I love it. Okay, so take a peek. Maybe this is a better angle. So it doesn't look perfect right now, and that's okay. We're just going to bring it together enough so that all these little lumps and all these little pockets and stuff are gone. So I'm just going to gather it. Again, you don't want to overwork it, because the whole point of shortbread cookies, kind of like pie crust or anything, is that you want to have a tender cookie. So I just want you, and you can work it in your hands, you can kind of press it down, fold it around, just enough until you don't see quite as many cracks. You're always going to have a few. Don't I know that over getting that the last 10 years? That's the truth. People used to say I looked 20 when I was 35, and now I'm 38 and I look 45. I don't know what these last 3 years did. So this is all it needs to look like, everyone. Just like that. That's perfect. And then we're going to put our other parchment over the top. I kind of flatten it with my hand just to get a level surface going. And we're going to roll this out to about 1/4 of an inch or so. If you want to have a little bit thicker cookie, you can, but I wouldn't go much more than 1/4 of an inch, because otherwise the outside will get too dark before the inside actually gets cooked. And we want to have like a really nice color on these cookies. So rolling pins, this is one of these things, everyone wants to go smashing things with rolling pins, and I'm going to ask you to be very careful and very delicate. This is a soft dough. Just needs a little tenderness. It doesn't need a lot of pushing really hard. It's going to move really fast, be like really nice and easy with it. And you're just always going to start in the middle of your dough. So my dough is like right here. I'm going to start in the middle, roll out one side, come back to the middle, roll in the exact opposite direction. And then I'm going to turn it 180 degrees and do the same thing. And basically just keep repeating that process to make sure that it's nice and level, and that we're getting a pretty even shape. Now, I've got a little bit of smaller parchment paper here, so I'm going to break my rule, and I'm just going to start rolling it out like across the parchment paper here. But the big thing is the thinness. So whatever thinness you get it to, we want to make sure that it's all the same. That's kind of one mistake people make, like whether they're cutting veggies for a stew or they're baking cookies. Things need to be about the same size, because that way they'll cook and they'll bake the same. So if you have like this cookie sheet and it's like you look at sideways and it looks like the Appalachian Mountains, there's like topography going, those cookies aren't going to bake the same. The thicker ones are going to be raw, the thinner ones are going to be like crackers. So I always say it's almost like if anyone's woodworkers or knows woodworkers or did like, auto body stuff, like sometimes you can't see if something's level, you got to like feel it. So that's what I'll always do with my doughs and stuff when I'm rolling it out, is just kind of feel across the top and just make sure that it's nice and smooth. And like, so over here, I can feel that there's a little bit of a bump, like at the top, it's a little bit higher here. So I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit. It's a weird example, right? We're making cookies and I'm talking about auto body. I'm sorry, but it's just the truth. It's the best. Does that make sense to y'all, though? I feel like that's one of those like big tips that people don't think about in cooking. It's like you want to be a better baker and cook immediately, instantly, overnight. Portion things the same size, like your balls of cookie. Cut your carrots into the same size shape to roast so that they actually cook the same, you know? Liz, there's a big head nod over there. You're with me with this?
I was just thinking, I wish somebody would have told me that like 20 years ago when I moved out on my own and started cooking and burning everything.
Yeah.
That would have been helpful.
You got like raw carrots on the tray and then like burnt carrots on the tray. Yep. I get it. All right. So how good, by the way, does the orange zest look like in here? Like the little flecks of orange, just absolutely beautiful. Smells beautiful. I'm going to do a little ring cutter. If you wanted to do it in rectangles, you could even use like a pastry cutter or something, cut them into rectangles. You can do your shortbreads whatever size you want. But you just want to find a spot close to the edge. And you want to be able to cut them closer to each other because it just means you get more cookies. You don't want to like have all over the place. Now you can gather this dough back up probably one more time, maybe 3 times, but the third time they're just going to be a little bit more tough. So you give those to the neighbors that you like but that you don't love. But you want to get as many out of the first little cutting as you can. So yeah, I'll do that one too. So like that. So just really, really nice and close. And you can either sort of peel the other shortbread away like that. If yours is a little soft, like mine's a little soft, you can grab like a little knife. I'm looking for my little palette knife, which I can't find. So I am going to use a fish spatula because this is one of my favorite tools. But anything that you can find that's just nice and flat to be able to kind of go underneath and lift your cookies up and then be able to transfer them over to your tray. Now, this is the point I was talking about. You probably feel that the dough is pretty soft when you're working with it. It's like really, really loose Play-Doh almost. If you want to, once you get them all cut up, if you want to chill them, just put them on your sheet tray, put them in the refrigerator for maybe like 10 minutes, or even the freezer if you got room for about 5. And it's going to firm them up. And the big thing there is it's just going to keep them from spreading so much when you bake. They're going to keep a little bit of a nicer shape. If you don't care about that as much, you don't have to do it, but just makes a little bit of a prettier cookie. That's all. So if you're not chilling, though, I want you to give a little bit of space around the cookies because they'll spread a little bit and you want to try and have them not touch each other. All right, in the kitchen fam, how is everything out there in cookie land? Are we doing okay? We're good?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Could I chill the dough before I roll it out and cut up?
Yes, you absolutely can. The only risk with that is just don't chill it too far. And I've been there. You leave it in the refrigerator for too long, and the butter like all resolidifies up. And then it's just an awful pain to like roll out. And you got to let the dough warm up a little bit or like smack it with your rolling pin. So I still wouldn't chill it any more than probably like 15 minutes or so before you rolled it out, or it just makes your life more difficult. Yeah, of course. So I'm going to save the rest of these. I'll bake these off for everyone here in the studio a little bit later. So I'm going to gather mine up, but it'll give you a good idea to show you what it looks like when you gather up. Like say this was all your scraps. You can absolutely, no stress, just kind of gather it all back up. Again, don't overwork it, but be a little bit delicate with it and just bring it back into a ball of dough. You could put your parchment paper right back on top and you could roll it back out and cut more cookies. Second time, they'll still be good. Third time, a little bit less so, but still definitely fine. But I'm just gonna bake off this small batch here in my little oven for tonight. And I'm looking up, I see a little virtual hand raised by Haley. Haley, do you have a question?
I do. I was just wondering about salt. I was wondering why kosher salt instead of regular salt.
So kosher salt, you could use regular salt. The one thing is that a lot of recipes will measure with kosher salt a lot because it's just a little bit easier to control, especially when you're sprinkling some. It's really easy to oversalt when you're using like iodized table salt because the grains are so small. You actually also get a little bit purer salt flavor with kosher. So you'll find that a lot. The only time you won't is if you see like a baking recipe where the salt would never really have a chance to dissolve very well. Then you might see a finer salt. But other than that, kosher is the way to go. Yeah.
Shout out to Haley. Haley's my sister. She's Coast Guard in Alaska, so we're able to do this together, which is super cool because I'm in Ohio.
That's amazing. I love it.
Hey, hey.
Sisters in the house. That's so cool. I feel bad using this because Liz and I were talking about this earlier. She doesn't have any. I'm sorry, Liz, but I'm gonna use my fancy sugar, and I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit over the top. Just gonna give it like a little crunch, and it kind of looks nice, like sparkles when it comes out of the oven. But that's it, y'all. I mean, this is kind of what our little orange shortbreads look like. So this is the one thing I'm gonna tell you. The baking time is gonna change on a lot of things. Liz, if you thought the cutting thing is the same size, wait for this one. The person that writes the recipe wasn't using the same oven as you or the same tray as you or like all kinds of things. There are so many variables to baking, especially a cookie properly. If your tray's a little bit different, silicone versus parchment, you know, all these different things. So what I want to tell you is the time is it's a suggestion. You know, but you really need to be able to keep an eye on your cookies and watch them and make sure that they look nice. They look golden brown, delicious, just set. So like if you made smaller cookies and you put them in for the 15 minutes that's in the recipe, you're going to end up with burnt crackers. So all I want you to know is probably right around the 10-minute mark, regardless of what size y'all make your cookies, I'd check them. If they might be getting close to done, they only need another minute or two, but then from then on, you'll be able to just kind of like adjust. And all you're looking is for the outside to be like a nice, just kind of like medium golden brown. The inside should just be like barely set. They'll keep cooking on the tray. And that could take 10 minutes. It could take 15 minutes, depending on a lot of factors. So I'm going to set myself a little 10-minute timer for my little mini shortbreads. And then I just want to check in before we get ready to do the mousse. People getting ready to put cookies in ovens. They're doing okay. Carmen's working on her cookies. She's good though. I got thumbs up. Missy, who's that with you?
My daughter Kyla, she loves to bake, and she sees her cousin Gabe over there in the background, so she's like, yay!
That's awesome. What do you like to bake? Tyler, right?
Kyla.
Oh.
I don't have anything specific. I just like to cook.
You're talking my language. That's me. People say, what's your favorite dish? What's your favorite thing to cook? And I don't know. Savory, sweet, whatever. I just want to be in the kitchen. All right, y'all. So we're looking pretty good. My cookies are in. I'll show you what they look like so we can kind of see how they're going. We're going to make some mousse. Are people chocolate mousse fans? Oh, come on. It's like fancy pudding in a way, right? It's just delicious. Does anybody make chocolate mousse? No. Yeah, that's usually how that goes. You
My
like?
husband always makes it for me.
Yeah, that's, we're good for that sometimes. But I wasn't surprised that I was going to get this for we like it and this we don't make it. It seems like one of those things that maybe it's a huge pain or maybe it's intimidating. I hate using that word, but it's not one of those things you look at and you're like, oh, I can do that, no problem. But it's actually incredibly simple to make a good chocolate mousse. You just have to know a little bit about what you're doing at each stage to treat the eggs right, to treat the chocolate right, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing is the chocolate. Double boiler here. I know not everyone has a fancy actual double boiler. Nobody does. I don't own one. You can make your own double boiler by taking a pot of water and putting a heat-proof bowl over the top. So heat-proof glass bowl, metal bowl, and you want to make sure that it doesn't touch the water. So when you put the bowl down and you lift it back up, it should be dry. I had mine on earlier, so there's a little steam, but it shouldn't be touching the water because if it touches the water, you're going to be basically burning your chocolate. The whole point of a double boiler is that steam hits the bottom of the bowl and it gently melts the chocolate. Okay, so when you put that on, just make sure it's not actually touching the water. And you're going to turn your pan on to a pretty high heat, like maybe like a medium high, like a 6 out of 10, something like that on your stove, just so that we can generate a pretty good amount of heat to make some steam. Safety advice, by the way, though, the steam, this isn't like a manufactured thing. Like this wasn't made in a factory. So there may be little pockets, little spaces. You might have like steam or a little bit of water like splitting at the side. It happens when you make your own double boiler. So don't like go, too close to it. But we need a pretty good amount of steam going. And you're going to put your 2 tablespoons of butter in and then your chocolate in. And this is the easiest thing of the night. After you put your butter and chocolate in, don't touch it. Just leave it. One of the biggest ways that you can have your chocolate like go grainy and seize and just go wrong is people are like, I get it, it's chocolate. You want to play with it. It looks beautiful. They do those commercials where it's like drizzling and stuff. But if you stir your chocolate too early, what happens is it goes grainy, and that's not a good thing. So all you have to do is put it in the bowl and let the heat do its job, and we'll come back to it in a minute and check it out. I get it. I want to stir it too. Okay. So do you all know, you take a peek at the recipe, do you know we're going to do two things to make our chocolate turn into aerated chocolate. We're going to be whipping cream, and we're going to be doing whipped egg whites, basically making a meringue. So I have a question. Did everyone separate their eggs already, or is anyone doing this with me live? You all separated your eggs already? Great. Awesome. All right. Here we go. When you do enough like events and classes and things and you teach for as long as I have, there are certain things that like inevitably always go wrong, and then it gets in your head. And one of them for me is making pastry cream for some reason. And then the other one is separating eggs. I always break the yolk. So we're going to see what happens. Whatever bowl that you're going to be whipping your egg whites in, if you're using a stand mixer, that's great. If you're using a hand mixer, fine. Go ahead and grab that. And then we're going to put our egg whites into there, and our yolks we're going to save. So I'm going to grab myself another little bowl here. The yolks we're going to set aside to put into the chocolate in a little bit. So everyone has a different way that they like to do this. I really like, that's a weird way for that egg to crack. I really like actually just cracking it into a bowl, and then I go in with my hand and I just kind of scoop the egg white out. If you want to crack it straight into your hand, you can. If you're a real rebel and you want to do the whole egg yolk back and forth in the shell thing, you can, but that scares me. It's like all these little sharp edges, and I already have an issue with breaking my yolks. So I'll do it from this side too, so you can see it. And just crack, go down nice and low, drop the egg in, and then I just kind of go in and just kind of scoop the yolk into my hand, and the white just kind of comes out, let it drip, and then I'm going to save my two yolks. Separating eggs is a very personal choice. Everyone has the way that they want to do it, so you all do it however you want. Can I get some mild excitement, though, for not breaking a yolk on screen? Because I was really nervous about that. I need some recognition. I need some... Thank you. Thank you. I needed that validation today, so thank you. Thank you all. All right, so egg whites are going to go into our stand mixer bowl. We're not going to be putting it in yet, but I want you to have your sugar, the coconut sugar, your white sugar, whatever you're using, ready to go.
You said we're not putting the yolk in the white fry?
What's that?
You said we're not putting whites in yet, and I just put it in?
We're putting the whites in, but not the sugar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
The whites, but not the sugar. Because the sugar we're going to be sprinkling in a little bit at a time, and that's the proper way to make an actual French meringue, which is what we're making now. And I'd love to talk about all the different types of meringues, but we'll just talk about French today. So in a second, we're going to start whipping that up. But before we do, I want to point out the double boiler. And this might be different for you all. Mine heats up really fast. But if you can see, there's steam that's starting to come around the outside. And then... My family pronounces meringue meringue. I like it, and I'm stealing that. Can you all see how the chocolate's just starting to melt and the butter's just starting to melt? Okay, so that's the first time when you can really actually, if you want to, even think about like moving your chocolate and your butter around, just to make sure that it's going to be heating evenly and melting evenly. And then I'm going to go back to just leaving it alone and letting it finish melt down appropriately. Okay, so meringue. Anyone made French meringue before? Sprinkling sugar into whipped egg whites? No? Oh, this is fun. All right. So the biggest thing here is when you whip egg whites, they get really airy, but they're very delicate. To give them a little bit of strength, we whip the sugar into them. But if you just dump all the sugar in there, it actually deflates the meringue. The sugar never dissolves. It's a mess. So we have to add our sugar a little bit at a time. So however you're whipping up your eggs, you are going to start on kind of like a medium low speed and just start kind of getting them a little frothy, like whipping them up a little bit. You're going to start getting little baby bubbles on them. It's a weird description, but I always say like this first step, it should look a little bit like old dirty dishwater. It's a little bit yellowy. It's got like little tiny weak bubbles left over. You know, the soap's not looking good anymore. And that is what we want it to look like. And if you got, can you all see that a little bit? You see just how it's got like the little weak bubbles and stuff. Okay. So once you get there, once your egg whites look a little frothy, we can have it still over like a medium speed, and we're going to start adding in our sugar just a little bit at a time. And if you want to grab a spoon, you can grab a spoon and do this, or you can just kind of like knock it in. But I'd say maybe like a tablespoon or so at a time. And it just gives the sugar a chance to dissolve and spread throughout the egg whites. And it also keeps us from popping all those beautiful bubbles that we just made. So I'm just using my hands and just kind of like knocking a little bit of sugar in at a time. Wait a second or two, and then keep going. And at this point, your stand mixer or your hand beaters, whatever you're using, should be at like a medium to sort of medium high speed. We're just going to give that sugar a chance to dissolve. Chocolate smells so good. All right, so that's in. And I'll show it to you so you can take a little peek. So all the sugar's in now. It's all dissolved. If you got a little bit around the edges, you could absolutely take like a silicone spatula or something and kind of scrape down and get the rest of that sugar down in. But now that that sugar's in and it started to dissolve, that's the point where we're going to add air. We're going to whip this. If anyone want to go into a Devo reference? No? Okay. We're going to whip this real good. And we are... Sorry, Misty. I had to do it. Nobody else was doing it. And we're going to aerate this. Now, there's different stages here. There is soft peaks, medium peaks, and firm peaks. And we want to go all the way to firm peaks. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. But I've got this basically up on high now, and we're just putting air into it. And I'm going to check my cookies because my timer went off. Oh, okay. So take a peek, y'all. I know we're busy, but if you can see, my cookies are set, but they're still just a little soft around the edges. And I want just a little bit of color. So that was me at 10 minutes. I'm going to put them back in, maybe just for 2 more minutes. Just to set them a little bit more. And to get a little bit of color around them. So if you're baking yours at the same time, just remember, check it about 10 minutes in. And keep an eye out, just looking for that edge to set. And look for the color. And then my chocolate, y'all. Chocolate is beautifully melted. Using the residual heat from the bowl just to finish melting it down. Maybe this is a little bit better for you. So it's just nice, glossy, smooth. And you're better off taking your chocolate off a little bit too early. The bowl's hot. So if you take it off a little bit too early, the heat from the bowl will help finish melting it. You can always put it back on the steam. But as soon as you've got it mostly melted, take it off, melt it down, stir it around to finish melting. And that is going to be your beautiful, beautiful, beautiful chocolates. So I know that's a lot of stuff going on. We're checking cookies. We're whipping egg whites. Chocolate's coming off the stove. I've got a lot. I'm sweating here. There's a lot of things to check in with. So I want to check in really quick with all of you and make sure we're doing good. Can I help in any way? Yeah, Heather, thank you for putting whip it real good in the chat. How's everyone doing? What's going on in the kitchens across the country and across the world? Even if you're just too busy to talk and you can just give me a hurried thumbs up, like just fly by the screen and go like, and then go. Are we okay?
So my egg whites and sugar are not fluffy.
So, quick question for you is it's a weird one, but it's only 2 egg whites. So sometimes the actual mixer part won't get all the way down in the bottom. Does it look like they're moving them around, Nancy, a lot, or no?
Yeah, some. But see if I can turn. I don't know how to turn this thing around. So.
I believe.
I mean, it's propped, but it's just not flipping.
Yeah, so that's the thing is I have a feeling, by the way, I'm going to give you really quick a good tip. If anyone has a KitchenAid stand mixer, if you tilt the head up, you're going to see a little screw. And that's okay. If you drop the bowl down, do you see a little screw on the back of that post?
Yes.
That screw adjusts your attachment head. So you can raise it and lower it. So if you ever find that like the whisk isn't hitting the bottom or getting to the bottom, you can lower it a little bit. The other option is, Nancy, now that I know what size stand mixer you have too, that stand mixer is huge and it's only 2 egg whites. Do you have, so it's probably having a really hard, do you have a hand one?
I do.
Yeah, use that. Yep.
All right.
100%. Haley, did you have a question too?
I was just gonna say I'm still on the cookies, and I'm like,
The stand mixer, I'm having a hard time hearing. Are they crumbly?
yeah, my dough is a little crumbly. Is that okay? Like this? See how crumbly it is?
Yeah, you probably heeded my advice a little bit too much, Haley. You can work it a little bit more to bring it together a tiny bit more. I kind of fold it, almost knead it like you're kneading bread a couple more times and smooth it out. Okay.
You know what? We need a closed caption view on this because, like, when I use my old school thing, I can't hear you. I'm just kidding, but I'm trying to follow.
Zoom has that ability, so we can pop that up. Ask.
I'm just kidding, but
Well, it's
it would be helpful.
joking aside, it's a fun thing because the closed captioning gets about 85% of the words right. So when it gets the wrong ones, it's really fun.
It says it's been enabled. Good job, somebody. Somebody enabled it. I don't know. I don't see them, but it's very.
You ask and you shall receive.
It'll come, huh?
Yeah. Oh, cookie time. Okay, so it's going to be a little hard to see because it's just very light. But if y'all take a look at the cookies, they just gotten a little golden brown around the edges. Now they're set nicely. They look gorgeous. For me, that was about 13 minutes for my cookies. I'm just going to take them and put them on a cooling rack and just let them rest while we finish up our mousse. And I really can't, I can't emphasize that enough that your cookies are going to be different for everybody. So as you're baking them, once you get to that 10 or 12 minute mark, just keep checking on them, seeing how they are. And when they're just set around the edges, you can take them out. All right. So egg whites is one thing that's going to make our mousse nice and gorgeous and airy. But before we fold those in and we whip our whipped cream, we've got to give it a little bit of a richness and a little bit of body to it. And that's going to be with our eggs. Now, mousse, I want to be clear for everybody, mousse is made with raw eggs. We're not cooking this yolk. We're not cooking the egg whites. So if that is something that doesn't work for you for a myriad number of reasons, you can find pasteurized eggs. You just have to look out for them. But a lot of times grocery stores nowadays will find it. But I just want to make sure I call that out. Anytime I'm teaching people how to make mousse is that this is going to be raw eggs, not cooked, okay? But we have our melted chocolate. And it's really important to let your chocolate cool down just a little bit, because if it's too hot, you're going to end up cooking your eggs and you're going to have scrambled egg chocolate, which is not exactly the thing that we're going for here. So you can just feel your bowl and make sure that it's not really too hot. Another good trick is if you were like, really the big thing is they just need to be equal temperature. So you could always take a little bit of the warm chocolate, put it into your egg yolks. And what we do is called like tempering, and kind of warm the egg yolks up a little bit. But all you don't want to do is make sure you don't want to put kind of cold eggs into the hot chocolate, because you're going to end up with scrambled eggs. So I am going to add my egg yolks in. And then just start mixing that around and incorporate my yolks into my chocolate. And it will stay nice and smooth and beautiful just until they're fully incorporated. Just like that. Liz, how are you doing over there? You hand mixing your egg whites still?
I cannot get these to meringue. They're just foamy.
They haven't come up yet?
No, they haven't come up yet. Do I need to increase the speed?
Yeah, give it a little bit more speed. Sometimes it takes a little while, especially if you have cold eggs too. Like if anyone has cold eggs, they'll take a little bit longer to whip up if they're cold.
And then I missed what you said. We're then taking the egg yolks and mashing them up and mixing them into the chocolate.
Yeah, no, and there's no hurry on that because if anything, you want your chocolate to be almost too cool before you add your eggs, but your egg yolks. But yeah, your egg yolks are going to get mixed into your chocolate and just fully incorporated, and that's it. Just as long as they're not too hot. A good trick actually is if anyone's whipping cold egg whites, if you grab like a warm towel, like a warm kitchen towel, or even just your hands if you have warm hands, just helping to heat those egg whites up, because they will, Liz. They'll take forever if they're cold. They'll take a long time. Does anybody have any cookies that they made? Is anyone out of the oven with their cookies? Haley, how are yours?
My cookies aren't made in the oven yet.
Okay. I want to see them when they do. Tia, those look great. Those are beautiful. Y'all check out Tia's cookies.
We'll see how they taste.
I have a feeling.
Incorporated some stuff out. So we'll see how that comes out.
I can't answer you because I'm eating cookies. I think that's gonna be great. It's gonna be really, really delicious with the orange flavor for sure. I'm with you all on the egg white club today. I'm trying to whip up cold egg whites, and mine's taking forever too. Anyone have anything there? Wait a second, Carmen. Is that a mousse shaped cookie? My heart. You're talking to a Mainer here. You know that? Like the mousse, that's a special thing for me. All right, so who's asking about stand mixers? Kim's asking my favorite stand mixer. I have two. I think they're the best two on the market, so you can go whichever one you want. So really quick, y'all, this is what my soft peaks look like. I'm going to keep whipping mine just a little bit more. But see how it holds a peak, but it sort of like falls over like a little bird beak? Kind of looks like an eagle. That's a soft peak. So I'm going to whip mine a little bit more so it holds more of a firm peak. There's two stand mixers that I really like. One is this one here that I'm using, which is Breville. If you all aren't familiar with Breville, they just make really nice products. They're really consistent. They have amazing features, but they're very simple, and you can rely on them because they're like a really nice quality. So I'm a big fan of this one. Also a big fan of, it's KitchenAid, right? It's classic Americana. They make all kinds of different sizes depending on what you need. And the best thing about KitchenAid is the attachments. If you have a KitchenAid and you don't have attachments to go like on the little front, you are missing out on life. Like the pasta attachments, they have like food mills, grain mills, ice cream bowls, all these different things. So that's probably what I would go with if you like to cook and bake a lot, because the attachments are hard to pass up on.
Can I see your whipping stuff again? Can I see like that view?
Yeah, of course. And we're still going to get a lot of body. I'm not going to lie to you. We're going to get so much body from the whipped cream too. If you only get yours to like a medium peak or so, then that's okay. It's still going to give us a nice amount of volume, a nice amount of lift.
Okay.
So check this out. My peak kind of fell over as I was bringing it over there, but there's my little peak. Do you see kind of how it is right now? It's almost like thin whipped cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I can see
see it.
Yeah, so if you get there or anywhere past there, we're going to be pretty good to go. Liz, how are you doing? Do we have any progress? That's not the face of a whipped egg whites. That is a What is going on over there?
Yeah, I don't know how yours is. Mine's like yours probably. It's hard to do when you don't have a professional mixer.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Misty, do you have the
Other diagram attachment. I literally have. I'm very not much baker, so like I have a couple like with.
Yes. But
so,
you.
no, it's not gonna work unless I use one of them.
Oh, you only have one of the whisk things?
Yeah.
That's weird. It comes with 2 ports.
I don't know what the heck happened to it. Probably a kid.
That's funny. Yeah, because with those little beater things, that's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take a while to come up. Yeah. All right, so mine's just about there. I'm not gonna get to the stiff peaks either, I don't think, but as long as you get to kind of like medium peaks. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's hard with the little hand mixers. They just don't go quite as fast and as powerful as like a stand mixer. You could also try and get yourself a workout and grab a whisk and do it by hand, but that's what I'm gonna do for my whipped cream. There we go. That's pretty good. That's like a nice medium peak. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna call it a day. I'm gonna tap out. So I'm gonna show y'all again kind of what it looks like here. Just holding like a really soft peak here. I can't show you. So I fell over again, but just kind of like a thick whipped cream. That's good. We got some aeration. We're gonna lean into the whipped cream and give us a little bit more lift with the whipped cream. But the most important thing here is making sure that as we're incorporating this, we don't overwork it. So when you get your eggs so that they have a little bit of body, and it's no stress if yours aren't there yet. Once you get your egg whites, so they've just got a good amount of air in them. This is a better view. You can kind of see how it's kind of wobbly. You can hold it kind of like that's good. We're great. We want to incorporate this without busting any of those bubbles. So I'm going to take about 1/3 of the mixture and do what we call, there's no good term for this other than sacrificing. We're not going to be very gentle about this. We're just going to go and kind of work it around, and it's helping to lighten the whole mixture and spread the chocolate out. And that, now that it's looser like this, and if you all can take a look at that, it's kind of like almost like lava-y now. Now, as I put in my 2nd third and then my 3rd third, because it's a lot lighter, it's a lot easier to fold this through, and we can be very delicate with it. So you just kind of like take the bottom, flip it over the top, and trying to be as easy as possible to mix this all the way through. And if you've never seen that before, that's like the proper folding technique, is you kind of cut through the middle, flip the bottom over the top, and just keep turning. And when it's almost fully incorporated, kind of looks like that, we're going to add in our last third. Haley, what's going on? How can I help? What's happening over there?
Besides my toddler messing in my kitchen, my question is, what's the difference in flavor if I were to have bittersweet chocolate instead of what you call it for, semi-sweet?
Yeah, it's just gonna,
bittersweet.
for sure. It's just got a little less sugar content in it, so it's gonna be a little less sweet. Literally, you're gonna have a little bit more of that like dark chocolate, kind of bitter in a good way flavor, as opposed to it being a lot of a sweeter one. And there's so much air, and we're putting extra sugar and stuff in the mousse as well, that actually if you go with a very sweet chocolate, it's gonna taste like just kind of like cheap candy, you know? So the dark chocolate is at least semi-sweet, but bittersweet would be really beautiful. Yeah. So here we are, y'all. This is the egg whites once it goes in. Just kind of nice and loose. It's got like a little wobble. And I'm going to take out our collective egg white frustrations on the world, and I'm whipping my whipped cream by hand. So I was doing this because it was a workout, but instead what I'm doing is I'm taking everyone's egg white situation, I'm taking it into myself, and it's going to be channeled through this whisk into whipped cream. Number one thing about whipping cream is the opposite of egg whites. Cold egg whites whip poorly. Warm whipped cream whips poorly. So you actually want warm egg whites. You want cold whipped cream. So you can either chill your bowl, you can keep the whipped cream in the refrigerator, but if you have a warm bowl and warm whipped cream, it's never going to whisk. So I'm going to put that in. I'm going to add in my sweetener, my little bit of agave, and also my vanilla. And I'm going to get whisking. I'm going to get whipping this up. If you ever do this by hand, or even if you're using a hand mixer, though, I always like to say you don't want to go chasing it in a circle around the bowl. Liz, I'm not going to comment on that.
Sometimes I forget I'm on camera.
It's okay. It's good to check your ingredients. You want to make sure they're good, so you got to check that whipped cream out. I get it. You don't want to go chasing it around in a circle like this. You want to tilt the bowl and whisk back and forth in a straight line. And that allows you to just whip it a lot faster. It's going to stay colder because you're not whipping it for as long, and you're going to aerate it so much more quickly. This is the same thing if you're doing like salad dressing. If you're ever trying to make a salad dressing from scratch, if you kind of chase it around in a circle, it all separates and never becomes an actual dressing. So nice little tilt of the bowl, whipping back and forth. Even if you're using a hand mixer, that's great too. And talk about life rules earlier. Usually one of my life rules is I don't like over whipped cream. It makes me just actually very sad. It breaks my heart when you get over whipped, kind of lumpy whipped cream. I want that like luscious, flowy, smooth whipped cream. But this is one of those cases we need it a little bit more firm. And then, especially if your egg whites were lacking a little bit in the puff, like getting a little bit of volume out of the whipped cream will be nice. Does anybody have any more cookies come out? I want to see cookies. I'm not logging off till I see Haley's. I was so worried about your cracked dough. I want to make sure we're good. Missy, are you eating your cookies or are you snacking on something? Cookies. Okay. So, y'all, this is what we're looking for. Nice whipped cream, just like this. A nice stiff peaks. Holds its shape really, really well. And then we're going to do the same folding, just incorporating it into our chocolate. So we want to do this as delicate as possible. I want to hold on to as many of our little bubbles as possible. So I'm going to add this in and do that same delicate, like folding technique. Just kind of cutting through the middle, bringing the bottom to the top, rotating the bowl, and just being as careful as possible. Like you want to evenly combine it, but you want to be as delicate as you can to do that. And sometimes you get like the big lumps, and it's actually better if you get those big lumps to kind of find them with your spatula and maybe go and like press them against the bowl and break them up, because if you just keep stirring trying to break them up, you're actually going to deflate too many bubbles to do that, so it's not worth it. So if you find any big lumps, you can just kind of smash them against the side and then keep folding. And this, y'all, is a gorgeous chocolate mousse. Now, depending on the size of your ramekin or your vessel, or I'm going to use like these two nice little glasses today, it'll make 2, maybe it makes 3. There's absolutely a recipe you could double also if you wanted to. I'm going to use like a little scoop, like a little measuring scoop, to help kind of get it down, to pour it into my cup so I don't make a mess. Feels like a fancy dessert, so I feel like, we want kind of a nice, clean presentation. So I'm just going to scoop it up, pour it into my cup, and it's going to take a couple hours to set up. So all you have to do is put a little plastic wrap over the top, and then put it in the refrigerator for about 2 hours, and it's going to set into absolutely glorious chocolate mousse. One of my favorite desserts, actually. It's really underrated. You forget how good it is until you then get chocolate mousse. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is one of my favorite things. It's delicious. So let me check in. I want to see how you all are doing. I know, some people are a little behind with the egg whites whipping up. Totally fine. You can go at your own pace. But how are you feeling about doing it, putting it together, folding everything in nice and delicate? We feeling okay? Or any questions, any guidance I can impart?
I found this incredibly helpful.
Oh, that's good.
I love to bake, but I always screw up meringue. And I think I tend to overmix, and I never knew, I don't know how, because I cook a lot, but I always thought that all that stuff needed to be cold, like the whipping cream. But I totally just learned tonight that eggs need to be warm. And that's probably why I always screw up meringue. But mine came out pretty good, and I just tasted it. I don't know if I'm going to wait 2 hours for it to get, because it's pretty good.
Tia, you live your best life. I'm not here to tell you to wait 2 hours to eat it. You can do whatever you want. Enjoy it. One, thank you. I'm happy to hear that you learned some stuff tonight. That's really important to me. And your mousse looks gorgeous. It looks phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's beautiful. Yeah, that's one of those things that's really funny. You think you're whipping things up, but they're exact opposite. So egg whites, if they're super cold, they take forever. They'll get there. If they are, and cream's the opposite. If it's warm, it takes forever. The other thing actually is, and I can't believe I didn't say this to y'all earlier too, is if you ever do anything else in your bowls, there's a lot of oils going on, baking and stuff, any sort of fats will keep your egg whites from whipping up. So that's why if you get any egg yolks in them, they'll never whip up. So sometimes even if you're baking and cooking a lot with your bowls, before you whip egg whites, you should take a little tiny bit of vinegar on like a paper towel or even like a cut lemon or something, and it will help take those oils out, because any residual oils or fats in your bowl will make it impossible for your egg whites to whip up. How did I wait until now to say that? I can't believe I forgot that. Liz, how are you doing? And who is your helper? I see you're folding now.
I have my helper Sophia with me. She's actually the head baker in the house. Say hi, Sophia.
Hi, Sophia.
Tumbling, and I think we're good. We had to catch up. I had to call in the big guns to whip up the whipped cream. I didn't have enough aggression to do it by hand, but
well, that's good, because I tried to take all that aggression away so that it was just fun for everybody else. You're welcome. It's looking very, very good. Sophia, how is it? Do you approve as the head baker? Yes, she definitely approves. That's fantastic.
we'll be taste testing this very soon.
I love it. How is everybody else? I want to make sure that before we say goodbye and talk about how much fun we had, I want to make sure everyone's feeling good, that you're feeling great about the cookies, what we did tonight, making the mousse. Any questions out there?
Yeah. How do you know when the cookies are done again?
So they're always... Yeah, Haley, they're always still going to be a little soft. When they come out of the oven and once they've cooled, they will set up. So you want the edges to feel just set, like just firm. And even if you're not sure, I'll tell you all, if you're not sure, if you want to sacrifice one cookie and take it off of your sheet tray and flip it over, a great sign your shortbreads are done is they have this just light brown circle like around the edge. Can you all see that okay? Like that is the sign of a well-done shortbread cookie. It's still pale in the center and just set on the edge. So you don't always see that on the top, but. And this other half.
How do you eat this?
Like,
Are you gonna show us?
Like this.
How do you eat the mousse with the cookie? How do you present it?
Yeah, you can absolutely. I think this is one of those things where you can either present it as really fancy once the mousse is set up a couple hours later. You could even crumble the shortbreads over the top or just kind of like place them down in. If this was like for a family and it's just like a fun night and you want to make fancy mousse, you can just, I'm thinking Santa Claus milk and cookies sort of deal. That's why I grabbed this little plate. You can just take all your little shortbreads, lay them out, have them look nice on the plate, give everyone their mousse, and then everyone can kind of grab and go as they want. But if I was serving it as like a presentation thing for dinner, I think just taking some of these shortbreads, maybe crumbling one over the top, and then putting one whole one in would be really nice. Yeah.
I have a question that maybe you can help save my recipe.
Yeah, what's up?
So I'm not going to be able to make whipped cream because I but is there a special way that I should fold in the mixture? And is there anything that I can add as a thickening agent?
The half and half. I mean, the half and half will still whip, but not as nice. It's going to be just kind of like soft. Let's see. There is one. This is weird. This is a weird one, but I just learned this and I haven't tried it myself. But somebody said that in certain situations, if you have, you need heavy cream and say all you have is milk, if you take a couple tablespoons of butter, melt it down, cool it a little bit and fold it in and then whip it, that's adding the fat that you're missing in the heavy cream versus the half and half. I've never done it myself. I literally read this like 2 days ago, so I don't know for sure that's going to work. The other option is there's ways that you can thicken things up, Carmen, but it's going to be things like cornstarch and stuff like that, and that's not going to be good for something that same thing, arrowroot, but that's not going to be good for something that's not cooked. You're going to be able to taste it, and it's going to be. If I was you, I would probably just try and whip the half and half as far as you can, and just delicately fold it in. The other option is, I don't know how far you are from a store, but the milk and egg whites part will be okay for a little bit. Like if you go and got some heavy cream, but I wouldn't mix any thickener in because it's just going to taste like raw, pasty stuff. Yeah, that's the truth. The only other, do you have gelatin?
I do.
You can take a small amount of gelatin and bloom it, and then whip it into the whipped cream, almost like you're making a fool, what they call it, and then you could fold that in. So put a little bit of bloom gelatin into the half and half, whip it up, and that might help thicken it.
So hot water and like a half teaspoon of gelatin?
Yeah, I'd say half a teaspoon for this at most. Hot water, put it into the whipped cream and start like mixing immediately so it doesn't like all clump up.
Thank you.
That's the best MacGyver I've got with what you got around.
Okay.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you all so much for cooking along, baking along with me. This is such a fun event. Again, I'm honored to have done this. I appreciate being able to do this. And Liz, thank you so much for hosting me. I appreciate it. The Mousse looking okay over there?
Mousse is going to be amazing. I forgot to bring out my dishes to let it set in, but it's amazing. And we've been taste testing. It is delicious.
That's amazing.
So thank you all so much for being with us tonight, this morning, whatever time it is where you are. We hope you've all enjoyed this in the kitchen with the USO and with our military spouse community. We're going to send you all a feedback survey very soon after we end tonight, and we're going to pick some people who complete that survey to win a USO military spouse apron. So please fill that out. It helps us so much to plan for our next ones. Speaking of, our next episode of In the Kitchen is going to be in April when we make a picnic lunch, chicken salad Sammy's with a farro salad. So look forward to that. There's the link that Trisha just put up on the screen for us. Again, we want to thank you all so much for joining us in the kitchen tonight. Thank you for connecting with one another. Thank you for cooking with us. If you want to show us what you made, you can find our USO Military Spouse Facebook group. You can find us on Instagram, USO Military Spouse. And then the recording of tonight will be on uso.org/MVP. Thank you all so much for being with us. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful afternoon, and a wonderful night.
Thanks, y'all. Bye, y'all.
Thank you, Chef Ben. We appreciate you.
Thanks.